There's no backing down this morning from this controversial bathroom bill that, after 13 hours of testimony, is apparently going to advance. Good morning. I'm Matt Briscoe with the Hill Country Tribune Morning Update. It's 6:05. A North Carolina-style bathroom bill has cleared a first vote in Texas after 13 consecutive hours of public comment dominated by transgender rights supporters who scolded the measure and people who support it, mainly evangelical Christians. A Senate committee early Wednesday advanced a proposal that would require people to use the public bathrooms that correspond with the sex on their birth certificate. The bill has drawn a lot of backlash from big businesses, including Google and the NFL. The vote 7-1 came nearly 21 hours after the start of the hearing that packed the Texas Capitol. Yesterday, down here at the Capitol, there were tons of protesters, people from both sides of the argument giving their opinion. Parents of transgender school children were among, I think it was 400 people who signed up to give very emotional testimony. Republicans pushing the bill say they're trying to protect women's rights to privacy in bathrooms. The proposal now goes to the full Senate, but it looks like it's going to face some resistance in the Senate. So the bathroom bill debate really just starting to heat up. In Biloxi, Mississippi, a freight train crashed into a bus full of Texas tourists that was visiting Gulf Coast casinos, killed 4. 40 people were hurt, 7 critically. The cause of the Tuesday afternoon crash is still under investigation, but witnesses told Mississippi news outlets that the bus appeared to have been stuck on the tracks while it was hit. The crossing is on a steep embankment and has a sign warning drivers that it has a low ground clearance. Authorities on the scene said it took more than an hour to get everyone that was on board the bus out of the wreckage. 2 people had been removed with metal cutting equipment, according to witnesses and bystanders. The CSX transportation locomotive pushed the bus about 300 feet before coming to a stop, with the mangled bus still straddling the tracks. Biloxi Police Chief John Miller said he was unsure why the train stopped on the tracks in the first place. Now, among the dead in the accident were 2 former Lockhart Independent School District officials. So that's still kind of a late-breaking part of that. And so we will keep track on that for you as developments come along. A San Antonio hitman murder for hire case was put to death last night. A paid hitman was executed Tuesday night in Texas in Huntsville for gunning down a San Antonio woman in a life insurance scheme nearly a quarter century ago. Rolando Ruiz was given the lethal injection of phenobarbital for fatally shooting Teresa Rodriguez, who was then 29, outside her home back in 1992, as she was getting out of the car with her husband and brother-in-law, who have both also been convicted for orchestrating the murder. Ruiz was paid $2,000 to carry out the killing. He was strapped to the death chamber gurney and looked directly at the 2 sisters of the victim and their husbands, and he apologized profusely. "Words cannot express how sorry I am and that I have hurt you and your family," he told them as he looked through a window just a few feet away. In his final words, he said, "May this bring you peace and forgiveness." He also thanked his family for their love and support. He said, "I am at peace. Jesus Christ is Lord. I love you all." As the lethal dose of phenobarbital was administered, Ruiz took several deep breaths, then began snoring quietly. All movement stopped within about 30 seconds. Ruiz, who was 44, was pronounced dead 29 minutes later at 11:06 p.m. That's less than an hour before the execution warrant would have expired. His execution delayed nearly 5 hours last night until the U.S. Supreme Court rejected 3 appeals by his attorneys that they had filed to try to stop the punishment. This was the 3rd Texas killing execution in this year, and the 5th nationally. Now, his lawyers argued to the Supreme Court that lower courts improperly rejected an earlier appeal that focused on whether Ruiz earlier had basically incompetent lawyers. They also contended Ruiz's execution would be unconstitutionally cruel because when he was on death row since 1995, he had multiple execution dates and 2 reprieves. Attorney Lee Kowarski blamed the long time between a San Antonio jury's verdict and the punishment on the state's failure to prove to provide Ruiz with competent lawyers. This was really more of a constitutional battle than anything else. I mean, it was just a very emotionally charged case. Now, the latest on the wildfires, the latest on the wildfires that's really ravishing the midsection of the country today. Oklahoma Governor last night, Mary Fallin, declared a state of emergency in 22 counties due to wildfires. Officials also say that one of 3 wildfires in the Texas Panhandle is now 100% contained. The Texas A&M Forestry Service says that a fire measuring about 46 square miles near Amarillo was contained late Tuesday afternoon. Another fire that burned more than 492 square miles in the northeast corner of the Panhandle near Oklahoma is about 50% contained. 2 homes have been destroyed thus far. And a third wildfire in Gray County is measuring nearly 145 square miles and is 25% contained. Philip Truitt, a spokesperson for the Texas A&M Forestry Service, says that his agency has confirmed 3 firefighters have been injured during the blazes, but all have been released from the hospital. So that's good news on that front. A lawsuit filed against Baylor University by 10 women alleging that they were sexually assaulted while students can proceed. This according to a federal judge ruling on Tuesday. The women, identified as Jane Doe plaintiffs, alleged that Baylor was indifferent to or ignored claims of sexual assault and didn't enforce federal general discrimination protections. Baylor had sought to have the lawsuits dismissed, arguing the former students' allegations were insufficient to claim liability, and the women had failed to plausibly allege that they were subject to further harassment after reporting their initial sexual assault. The university has been facing several federal lawsuits from women who say Baylor mishandled, ignored, or suppressed their claims of assault years ago. In an order issued Tuesday, U.S. District Judge Robert Pittman in Austin rejected Baylor's arguments to completely dismiss the lawsuit. Judge Pittman wrote that the women had filed their claims alleging that Baylor created a heightened risk of sexual harassment or assault by permitting a campus condition rife with sexual assault, by discouraging or mishandling reports of sexual assault within the 2-year statute of limitations to do so. So the plot thickens there against Baylor University. That's kind of a really interesting case. And while we have a few minutes here, I want to go back to the Texas crazy world of politics. You know, I've often said it that the world of the world's biggest circus comes to Austin once every 2 years for 140 days. This is no different. As I said earlier, hundreds of transgender rights supporters and also really, I don't know how any other way to put this, evangelical voters and transgender rights supporters faced off at the Capitol yesterday on this bathroom bill. The bill is going to require people to use public bathrooms that correspond with the sex on their birth certificate. Unlike North Carolina, where the law was known as House Bill 2, passed a year ago with broad Republican support, the Texas bill has split conservatives and faces a tougher road. Okay? More than 400 people, like I said earlier, jam-packed the Capitol to speak on the bill and created a scene that rivaled the intensity and emotion to a vote last month over a ban on so-called sanctuary cities. So this has been a very interesting session so far. The gloves are really coming off. The sheer turnout threatened to stretch the meeting past midnight and could delay a vote until early Wednesday, but Republican House Speaker Joe Strauss again made this clear that he has little appetite for the bill. And even if it does clear the Senate, on top of that, Republican Governor Greg Abbott has not given a public endorsement. And I agree with something that Speaker Strauss said yesterday. I'm a supporter of Joe Strauss, but I agree with something that he said yesterday. They have their agenda, we have ours. Okay? Joe Strauss evidently has made it very clear that he wants to focus on the economic development of the state, not so much the social issues. Now, Strauss did stop short of declaring the bill dead on arrival within 3 months of lawmaking, with 3 months of lawmaking still remaining in Texas. On the flip side of that, he's repeatedly denounced that this is bad for the Texas economy, while standing with corporate opponents that include Google, Amazon, American Airlines, Intel and Hilton, Microsoft, the National Football League, and the NBA have also said that passing the bill could give them second thoughts about bringing big events such as the Super Bowl or the All-Star Game back to Texas. Another issue in state politics was the voter ID transparency. A state lawmaker wants to shine a light on how Texans spend millions of taxpayer dollars to educate the public about its controversial voter ID law. Justin Rodriguez, a Democratic representative, is proposing legislation that, for the first time in Texas, calls for transparency of spending for voter education campaigns by requiring the Texas Secretary of State's office to produce data showing results after each general election. Rodriguez, who's a Democrat from San Antonio, is also a member of the House Budget Writing Committee and says that Texas officials shouldn't be allowed to hide information about public education campaigns, especially given the widespread confusion over changes to the Texas law leading up to November's election. In a statement, Rodriguez said these are public dollars. I hate that this kind of has become kind of an adversarial deal with the Secretary of State's office, but we want to make sure that the money is being spent correctly. A spokesman for the Secretary of State, Rolando Pablos, appointed by Republican Governor Greg Abbott, did not return a request to me for comment yesterday after this, but several top House Republicans authoring a proposal to revise the current voter ID law also declined to comment, so also citing the litigation. So this voter ID law could be a very interesting prospect here. There are bills in the Texas House and the Senate that would authorize state facilities funding for charter schools. Charters are public schools whose students are subject to the same academic accountability standards as those in public schools, but they don't get state funding to pay for buildings and facility maintenance. Donna Campbell, state senator from Republican from New Braunfels, is proposing to shrink these funding gaps. She's also a leading proponent of school choice, the voucher plan, seeking to offer public money for students attending private schools. Campbell said Tuesday that traditional public schools get an average of $1,400 per student annually for facilities, while charters get none. Democrat and Republican supported bills are also seeking charter school funding. Advocates say that nearly 250,000 students attend Texas charter schools, and 140+ thousand are on waiting list for them. So what's on deck for this? The House and Senate both have floor sessions scheduled for Wednesday morning, but more attention will again be focused on committee work, and that's not unusual for this time of year, or for the way the session is laid out. It's not unusual for most of the action to happen within committees, but they do have floor sessions. The House State Affairs Committee, a pretty powerful committee, is taking up the hot-button bill mandating that the fetal remains from abortions and miscarriages be cremated or buried. This comes after a federal judge blocked a Texas Health Department rule seeking to mandate the same thing. This is kind of my quote of the day real quick. From Texas Speaker Joe Strauss. When asked Tuesday if he's lost hope, Governor Greg Abbott will heed Strauss's previous calls to clarify if he supports the bathroom bill or not. He says, "I never give up on anyone." All right, 6:19, that's our morning news update. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll talk to you really soon. I'm Matt Briscoe with the Hill Country Tribune. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.